this virtual resume, and it started to grow a little bit, and it started to become something we love. We bought a couple units here and there, and then really the power of networking and organic networking through the podcast is how we were able to grow our portfolio.
Build a network, attract people to you to be a part of your world. And a lot of people feel like they're just not ready. And I love how you guys built your portfolio, like almost thought leadership first, it feels like.
I think a lot of people get that fear like looming over them where they're like, oh, this sounds great. I'll analyze a ton of deals, but I can't find that perfect property. When in reality, you got to make 25 offers just to get one property.
And if you find people that have scaled and are successful like you guys, you're generally going to find people that have followed a similar type of path or journey or framework. So it validates what we believe. So thanks for making it just a little smarter today.
So when you are building this real estate empire, you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it to create more jobs. You're not doing it to buy a bunch of shit that doesn't even align with the vision or why you got into it in the first place.
Hey everybody, this is Travis Dillard, and with me are my co-hosts, Gabriel Hamill and Mitchell England. And I'm excited about today's guests. There's two guys, Cory Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua. How'd I do, Ryan? Was that
nailed it?
Yeah, I know. I'm proud of myself there. They're joining us. I like these. I don't know a lot about them, so we're going to dig in. I like these guys because I'm reading through their Instagram, and there's so many similarities to what we're doing. I'll just kick off the show with this one message, or what is it called? Mitch, help me out here. I'm old. It's called.
Is it a reel, Travis? Is it a post? Is it?
I don't know. It's a post. Okay. Here's what that's not the important part. Here's what he said. Made $0 today, but I made breakfast with my daughter. I ran 4 miles, went to the farmer's market, caught up with an old friend, called my mom. That's a great day. If finances and building wealth are your only measuring stick for success, you'll live a very sad life, like Mitch.
Cool. So, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I love that. You guys have 70 rental units. I was looking, you got 3 long-term rental units, a short-term, 18 units as a general partner, 50 units as a limited partner. You're doing some ground up stuff. Like, want to dig into your story. But first, I guess, hey, welcome to the show. Where you guys calling in from today? Where are you at?
We're in Philadelphia. So thanks for having us. We appreciate it, man. Thanks for the intro. Appreciate the kind words. But yeah, we're just outside of Philadelphia.
Well, and Gabe was on your podcast last week, and Gabe has been telling us, dude, these guys are great hosts. They're really good. They're really good, which means they're better than you. And they're better than you, Travis. And it's like, I was saying, it's like trying to cook dinner for a chef, like I can cook mac and cheese and maybe tacos and I'd look like an idiot. So hopefully we live up to your expectations. So welcome to the show, man. And I think, tell us your story. Like take us back to little Cory, little Ryan, and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, I can make this brief. I'll let Ryan jump in. So I'm from the Philadelphia area. Ryan and I met in college. We went to Temple University in the beautiful North Philadelphia. And when we went to college, like we knew each other pretty well, but we knew more importantly that like we had a future. Like I could just tell like he was somebody that I wanted to be around. So after college, Ryan and I ended up living together. We ended up working at the same company for a little while, and it kind of sparked us one day when we were 25, 26, like, I don't know if I really want to just like work this job forever. Like, this is kind of like, is this it? Like, we graduated college and this is what we're doing here. So we stumbled upon real estate investing and just entrepreneurship and investing in general. And when we lived together, we just decided that we were going to each Ryan bought a primary residence and I bought a house hack. And then we came back together in like 2020 and said, hey man, let's start a podcast. And Ryan was like, well, we have like a 1 unit each. And like I had another rental unit at the time. Like, what are we going to talk about? Who's going to want to listen to us? And I kind of was like, I'm not sure, but I think eventually we're going to have enough like of a repertoire that people will like to follow along in our journey, as opposed to us teaching down to people. Like, I never wanted to be the guys who were like teaching people as much as like, let's do it together. So we led with authenticity. And I remember the day that Chad Carson took a chance on us, and he was like somebody that I looked up to. I read his book. He came on our podcast about 4 years ago. And then, we had this virtual resume, and it started to grow a little bit, and it started to become something we love. We bought a couple units here and there, and then really the power of networking and organic networking through the podcast is how we were able to grow our portfolio. So I didn't want to speak too long there. I'll let Rye fill in any blanks that I might have missed out on.
Cory, if you could back up, you said you stumbled across real estate entrepreneurship. What do you mean by stumbled across it? Was it a book? Was it a podcast? Was it something you heard or saw that made you go, yeah, there's something different than just working a job? What was it that you stumbled upon?
It was a little bit of a unique scenario here. So I worked for a local sports team in Philadelphia for 3 years, and I was making such a little amount of money working for the team that my boss said to me, "Hey, dude, why don't you buy a 5-bedroom house and rent out the other rooms to people that work here so that you can lower your cost of living so I can keep you on and you can stay longer and you can work here longer." I loved it, by the way. It was amazing. Like, it was one of the most fun things I've ever done in my career. But I had just a single mentor at that time who said he had like 10 rental units outside of working. And I thought, you know what, that sounds a little extreme to buy like a 5 or 6 bedroom house, but I do think I should probably buy a 3-bedroom. And I had friends that I was renting with at the time. And they were like, "I'd rather pay you than pay our landlord." So they moved into 2 units. My mortgage was $1,500 and they paid $1,250 or something like that. And I was basically living for $200 rather than spending $1,000 in renting. So that was when the spark went off. I was like, okay, there's something to this here. Fast forward, that property, is worth $200,000 more than when I bought it. And, I house hacked for several years, and then it led me to have more leftover income to go buy the next property. So then the books came after that. But at first it was just somebody telling me like, this is a smart thing to do. I have some units. Maybe you should consider it so you can work here longer.
How much did you put down on that first property?
How much did I put down?
3.5%, 5%.
So it's funny you say that. I didn't even know that you could put that little. I put 10% down. I knew that you could put under 20, but it was a $250,000 property that, I basically sunk 25 extra grand into the property for no reason. But I did have some money saved up, and I was pretty frugal. But I put 10% down, so $25,000. I'm sorry, I sunk an extra 12,500 into it if I was going to put 5% down. But yeah, so about 10.
I want to dig a little bit more on that, because I we'll get into like the story and the growth and everything else you guys have done. But you said you had a mentor that said, "Hey, you should buy a house." I think a lot of people are told, "Hey, go invest in real estate," but they don't actually take action. I'm curious about your mindset around that. And we talked a lot about mindset when I was on your podcast last week. But I'm curious, as a young guy not making a lot of money, and you had a mentor say, "Hey, you should buy a house, rent out the other rooms." I mean, I've given that advice to a lot of people. We all started with house hacks. A lot of people give that advice. Very few people actually take that advice and take action. What made you go, "Yeah, I should," and then ultimately pull the trigger and do the thing that a small percentage of people actually do, buy a house and rent out the other rooms?
I think this depends completely on the rooms that you allow yourself to be in and the people that you allow yourself to listen to. So this person to me was a big mentor to mine. I looked up to him in a lot of senses. He was a coach, a basketball coach, and basketball was my passion. He taught me a lot of things about business. So I was very careful about who I did and who I didn't take advice from. And if he spoke, I listened. And I thought, you know what, if he has 10 properties bringing him $6,000 a month in cash flow or whatever it was, why would I not listen to somebody who was a few steps ahead of me that had a clear path to where I would potentially want to be? So, it was really just like making sure the circle around me, even when I was young, was a little bit like I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room. Like I wanted to have the people around me that were smarter than me. And that led into the podcast and being into, that growing on an even bigger scale where we were able to partner on deals because Ryan and I brought a specific skill set. And the other people that we were partnering with brought a different skill set. But really, it was like, I think it was the sports mentality growing up. What that really helped me the most is like playing sports was like the biggest and greatest life lesson that I could ever have. I just remember like having that competition and that drive to like be better, in the greatest part of our lives. And after we exit school, people forget that they need coaches and mentors. It's like, it's such a weird thing to me. You have it your whole life. And then at a certain point, it just kind of like goes away. So I just opened my ears to people that I wanted to be like, basically.
That is super cool. I think I want to say too, like you guys established thought leadership so early with your podcast. We talk to a lot of real estate investors. We encourage them, hey, like go be a thought leader, like give back, genuinely contribute and build a team, build a network, attract people to you to be a part of your world. And a lot of people feel like they're just not ready. And I love how you guys built your portfolio, like almost thought leadership first, it feels like, which is feels really rare. So anyway, I just want to mention that.
I appreciate that. And it never intended to be thought leadership. I think it ended up working its way into that. It intended to be like, I think the person that I would resonate the most with is somebody who's one step ahead of me, who's doing the thing that I want to do. Like, so it's more like, come along the journey with us. Hopefully we have some nuggets along the way that you can parlay into what you're doing. And really we felt that by giving, that would be the best way for us to get. And
well, then you receive, you're giving and educating and teaching, then people are, the law of reciprocity, they're either maybe say they have capital they want to invest with you, or they're teaching you things that you don't know. Like, that's why they say business is a team sport. I think Kiyosaki used to harp on that. And that goes, I love that to Mitch's point, like one unit, let's start a podcast. Most people would feel
it's
like
incredible
imposters.
Though.
Yeah, it's great.
It's incredible. It's so smart.
Ryan, why Cory was house hacking, you were house hacking another property. How'd you get into that property?
Yeah, I actually wasn't completely house hacking it. My wife and I bought a primary residence. Her idea, this is back in like 2017. We got it for like $360. We actually put 20% down. And that's actually been super beneficial for me today because, long story short, I'm going to keep this place as a long term. It's worth about $550 now. We have the loan down to like, I don't know, like let's call it $250. So I have about roughly like $300 in equity in this thing. We already pulled a HELOC to invest in another property, done some other things with it. So it's become a tool for me. But I think kind of back to the beginning or the antithesis story here is my dad, his brother, he has two brothers. They both are entrepreneurs. And I've seen these guys play real life Monopoly their whole lives as I'm growing up. So they've had, one has a construction company, one has a craning company, the other has a paving company, but they all have real estate on the side and these little like silos of income coming in. They'll rent out a bay to a landscaper and just like recycle. They call it a shop or like a quarry, right? There's people paying rent to come in to dump loads of truckloads of dirt and things like that.
So cool.
It's just interesting. Like I always knew I kind of give a lot of credit to my dad here. He's like, dude, at some point you're going to want to work for yourself. I'm telling you, you're going to come back banging on the door saying, Dad, you were right. Because he went and tried it. He realized he didn't want to punch a clock every day. And you realize you're capped at some point. Though he didn't go to college, he kind of roughed it on his own. He figured it out. And it's just so interesting, the dynamic, what you grow up with and what you're taught, it kind of like shapes you for the future. And I think, Gabe, we were talking about this too, like kind of how your relationship with money forms at an early age. Like Cory and I weren't afraid of it, right? Because we were around other people that had seen success and they were like, you guys got to try this. So we're like, okay, well, if we have these guys in our corner, worst case is we have someone to lean on if we fail. And I think a lot of people get that fear like looming over them where they're like, oh, this sounds great. I'll analyze a ton of deals, but I can't find that perfect property. When in reality, you got to make 25 offers just to get one property. So it's just an interesting dynamic. But yeah, we started in different spots. I think one of the coolest things for me, and I'll give Cory a little shout out. I saw he and I are always very close. We went to college together. We lived together. Side story, it was interesting. We were paying rent one day to our landlord and this goober pulls in and we're like, this guy is our landlord? Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, it wasn't Mitch.
This is abuse. You see this? This is abuse.
I do. I don't like this. I'm on your side, Mitch.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
I love you.
So I will say it was like, wow, someone like this can buy a house. Cory and I were like, we kind of feel like we're in the same league as this guy, if not better, smarter. Like it's interesting what you see out in the world and you're like, wow, if other people are doing this, I can do this.
Why not you?
But exactly. And so the real thing I wanted to say is like, I had my primary residence, Cory had, and I saw a post from Cory and it was on his Instagram. And he had his finger up. It was a 1 and he had a house behind him. I'm like, dude, did you I DM'd him right away. I was like, dude, did you just buy that? And he started the journey first. And I was like, I'm in. I don't care. I'm in. Cory did it. I can do it. We already talked about this a million times. So he took the first thing. And then basically his next approach to me was like, dude, you want to start the podcast? And the world had like just shut down at that time. And I was like, you know what, dude, if you're in, I'm in. Let's rock out. Let's try it. Worst case, we fail. And then it kind of, blossomed into what it is today.
I love that you guys are action takers. I think that's just such a big piece. I mean, it's that mindset piece. Like, yeah, I want to do it. But then you guys actually took action and did the thing. So how do you go from 1 unit to you guys are at about 70 rentals now, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I can kind of break this down a little bit. So just so people are listening, Ryan and I don't own the 70 units, just solely the two of us. I like to say that because, there's marketing that goes behind a lot of people's like unit count. And it's just, I think a lot of it's BS. I think that what has happened for us is we were able to go from 2 to 4 and 4 to 8. And then at that point, we were like, wait a second, if we do this on our own, we can go pretty far. But if we partner with people who are better than us, who have different skill sets, we can grow a lot faster. So what we did is we ended up being limited partners on a 7 unit and limited partners on a 43 unit project with capital that we had from our W-2 jobs. And then we met like next level relationships that we were able to use our skill set, i.e. investor relations, some market analysis, and like client retention, if you will, like the marketing aspect of bringing people into the deal and working with an operator who did the property management, who did the renovations, who found the deal. And then, those two kind of melding together, we were able to get a significant portion of equity in an 18 unit and then an additional project, a ground up development project in Arizona. And this was really from Ryan and I putting our message out there and becoming real estate investors and then wanting to grow even further and having people on our podcast that were like, I think I like these guys. Like, I think they're authentic and they're real guys. And we'll tell our story like it is. And we're not trying to like be somebody that we're not. And that led to more relationships. So that's how we grew our portfolio to that 70 number.
Hey, Cory, or just going back a step, you had mentioned one thing. You said, I took a HELOC out, or no, this was Ryan. I took a HELOC out and I've since purchased subsequent properties with that. I don't want to gloss over that because that's really important. You can pull equity out of your house tax-free using home equity line of credit. Rates are kind of high right now, but that'll change. And you could create millions of dollars using daisy chaining strategies. We talk about it here. Like I can take, and I know Mitch owns a house, a really great house. He actually converted it into a duplex. He Airbnbs it when he travels, when he's home, but he's had a line of credit on that thing. And Mitch has made millions of dollars by borrowing, buying a property, refinancing, paying it back, and just sort of, benefiting from the concept of the velocity of capital. So I think that's really smart, but I wanted to just go back a second and say, or ask, you said you had like a single family house and then we went to like 2, 4, 8. I wanted to stop there because a lot of people might listen to that and go, wait a minute, how did you go because this wasn't that long ago. This was like 2020, you were saying, or 2017, but like
2018 was when we bought our primaries. And then 2020 is when we started investing together.
That wasn't that long ago. I just want to make sure, could you talk about the tactics on how you actually did that? How did you go from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8? And then obviously we understand you partnered with people with capital and you did bigger properties, and that's really where the magic and skill comes from. But I wanted to go back to sort of those foundational properties and how did you do, and ask how you did that.
Yeah, I think this all comes back to the relationship building and like, so Ryan created some relationships with people that he worked with. Some of his clients actually they owned a lending company, right? They owned a title company, a lawyer. So people that had access to, for example, estate sales, right? Mm-hmm. So we were kind of tapped into a market where a couple properties we found on the MLS where we just said, hey, we can, in an interest rate environment that's 3% for an investment loan, which was pretty rare, we were able to put 20% down on an investment property in a C+ neighborhood. So we did that once. Then we did some sort of like BRRRR deal that we never refinanced out of. So that was another single family home. And then we bought another duplex. And really, it was just kind of creating the relationships and bringing us to the forefront of where deals were happening. And by doing that, we then were able to build the trust. So, and Ryan, if you have anything to add there too, I didn't mean to steal it from you, but that was basically how we grew it to our own mini portfolio.
Yeah, just to give some context here, and I think this will be good for listeners, maybe aspiring investors. It's very helpful to have an accountability partner and also one that is your business partner as well. I think I don't want to go down this whole lane, but just to give you an idea, like Cory and I think someone else mentioned this on a podcast, maybe that you guys have done, but like we treat each other like brothers. Like I know that some relationships don't work. I can see you guys are like that too with the banter and stuff. I know you love each other. I think it's like, I know that anything I do impacts Cory and anything he does impacts me. So there's things in our lives that maybe that they're uncomfortable to talk about that we have to share with each other because it's going to impact the business. But we made a conscious decision. It's going to be Ryan and Cory first before the business at any expense. So we had that conversation early on, but then we also said, hey, listen, we're going to treat this thing like a business. And where I'm getting at is we both have superpowers in different ways. So Cory's phenomenal at running the numbers, and he's very by the books in certain things. And like, he has calculators, Excel spreadsheets to track our income, expenses, all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm the guy that'll go in and I'll tear down the wall, I'll paint, I'll do whatever. If I don't know how to do it, I'll go on YouTube and I'll figure it out. He has no interest in that. And like, we found that over time through doing, like the only way we'd know each other are good at that, or what their strengths are, is like, you have to go through the process and try everything, right? Like there's, I think there's a book out there, I forget the name of it, you guys will probably know, but like it talks about a visionary and an integrator, right? And like in the beginning, when you're an entrepreneur.
No, not traction.
You know, Wickman is that?
E-Myth, the E-Myth, I think maybe.
Yeah, I think both of them talk about it too. Yeah.
Combo of these. Yeah. We read all three of these, right? So it's like, I'm kind of blending some knowledge here. But with that, it's like in the beginning, you're both the visionary and the integrator. You got to come up with the idea, you got to research it, and then go put it into action. And then over time, like Cory and I realized like, well, he doesn't really have interest in that. I have interest in this, and vice versa. So let's leverage each other's superpowers. And that's how you scale. Be like, dude, you go talk to this person. I don't care. I don't want to talk anything about it. You fill me in, you give me the summary, let's move forward. Because when there's two people in the same room over and over and over, you're just wasting time. So we like to divide and conquer. Like I'm the branding, the marketing guy. Like I'll bring the website to life. I'll bring the social to life. And he'll do a lot of the back end stuff with like DMing people or CRM management or just relationship management. And this has just come over time. But I say this like the power of scaling. We've had two people being able to attack this thing versus one person with limited time. So just as our lives change, we can offload onto other people and just say like, here, like, this is what I think you're going to be better at. So you go take this one down, and then really divide and conquer is the name of the game for us.
Well, I think not only like divide and conquer, but at least from my perspective, like just my confidence. I didn't have the confidence to go buy a 40 unit mobile home park when we did, but Travis was like, let's do it. I don't know if you had the confidence. I think together we had it, right? But like,
wait, I thought you were the confident one. Wait a minute.
Whoa. Hold on a second here. Yeah, no. So, no, it's like, but I think you can go, like pushing to the next level together is kind of cool too. Cause you're like, hey man, you're in my court, I'm in your court. Like, and then of course the division of efforts. But like with Travis and I, that's my real estate portfolio exploded when we met, and now he's kind of an older, very much older, abusive partner. It's turned into a very strange relationship, but no, I'm teasing, but like he really is my brother. I trust him with everything, but like, I also feel like as we move forward and we take down bigger properties or we go build a business, we're talking about buying businesses, like having somebody beside me is really important to me. And that's how I maybe speak to that a little bit. Cause I know Ryan, you were saying when Cory bought that first home, you're like, wait, I can do that too. Like, do you feel like it's a confidence hack a little bit?
Yes, 100%. How do I say this? I know, and it can become a crutch at some points. I'll throw that out there, but just upfront to know that like, my weaknesses are kind of covered by Cory and I can kind of riff on certain things. It is a confidence booster. Like he'll look at a deal 3 times differently than I will. And he's like, dude, this is the one and that's not the one. I'll be like, you know what? All right, let's go with the one you picked because I know you've picked it apart way more than I had. I did the simple gloss over, right? And it just comes with, it's hard to explain, but it kind of goes down to having 2 brains attacking one project. And it's like, I know that it's a double-edged sword. If you're both having the worst day ever, you guys are going to drive yourselves into having the worst week possible. But if you know the other one's having a bad day, you almost had to fake it till you make it. Be like, dude, we're good. Talk them off a ledge and go from there. And so as long as one of us is good, we're great. If we're both on, it's over. I think in the beginning, and this is just for people that are kind of going through the motions now and you may have a partner, you really need to, you like push yourself through the scary times and the fear of actually doing it to just take action. But then I think you can talk yourself out of some projects too and things. So it's always good to like, from having the core of yourselves, that's what the perks of building the network are, to find people that are amazing at the things you guys are not at the next level of scale and ask them for advice. And that's what the podcast has given us. Like we could pull one of you guys and be like, yo, I know you guys are 10 steps ahead of us in this aspect. What do you guys think about this deal? Give me maybe some perspective 10 years that I don't have. And that is really what's given us the ability to be so confident going in rooms. Like we can drop a DM or an email to any of the aces in a specific lane. And we know that if they give the thumbs up, like we're good and we're onto something. And if not, we get to go back to them and be like, dude, you told me this and I kind of went on you. Can you help me? Can you help me figure it out? Not blaming anyone. I think everybody's very scared of this game because it is like you save so much. There's so much time to save up for your next property and things. And once you get into the creative space and using other people's money, then it's you get to scale, but you can't get there without going through the motions first. And Cory and I always talk about like the power of your first deal and like the power of one. We would be nowhere without that first deal. And that's like our core belief is like, get the first one, you become an investor, and then you learn from there.
I love that you said that. I mean, we always talk about, we call in our tribe, we call it retirement number one, which is generate enough passive income to replace your living and lifestyle expenses. We call it R1. And we have a framework, right? And it's 5 phases. The last phase is the part everybody sees. You're scaling, you're raising, you're attracting capital, you're taking down 18 units, 50 units, 100 units. And everybody's like, man, like these guys are superheroes, but they don't really look back at like the fundamental, the sort of like I always say the boring stages. Buying a single family house doesn't look that great on social media. You're not cashing the check in front of your rented Lambo or whatever, like, or the duplex. But like, I really feel like you have to go through these really foundational phases to build the confidence, notoriety, and then equity, obviously, to progress to the next phase. So I love that we all sort of say the same things, that it sort of validates what we're always talking to our elite members in 0 to 100. And like, we're always talking about this sort of process you need to follow. And if you find people that have scaled and are successful like you guys, you're generally going to find people that have followed a similar type of path or journey or framework. So it validates what we believe. So thanks for making us feel just a little smarter today.
No problem. I will say just one note here is like, I think you mentioned the Lambo, and I think about that all the time, and like what you see on social media. And a lot of it is a false narrative or a rented Lambo or something just to make it look marketable and pull you into the web. Right. And so I want to get down to like, we have a paid off Nissan and a paid off Honda. And end of this year, I think 20 grand away from millionaire status, whatever it is. Right. So like, there's something to that. You have to get your financial house in order before you go into this real estate investing game. And what I mean by, you don't have to have all the money in the world. You have to have your systems and processes in place, your checks and balances to know that you're saving more than you're spending, and then you're investing the rest, right? And drill it down to numbers and net worth tracker and things like that. So like basic personal finance 101, that's what really kind of set the foundation for Cory and I up. We read all the books on it, but getting into real estate investing, you're going to have to do your basics amplified. And so I just want to bring that to the point. Like a lot of people that we know that are millionaires or get to this point, they're not all driving the crazy cars and buying all these liabilities. They have the basic standard of living, and what they can do is they can do what they want when they want because they didn't spend 250 grand on the Lambo or a $2 million property that they still have a mortgage on. So,
well, what do you value though, right? Like, is it your like Travis? You read that post at the beginning of the podcast, and it was about time with your kids and time. Like, what do you value? And I think I see a lot of people. They're chasing and there's nothing wrong with a beautiful house or car or plane or whatever. But if it takes away from your freedom, then I would argue that like, that's kind of a challenge. That's a problem. And like having time and having a choice, that's a beautiful thing that actually very few real estate investors have as well, because they just get in the rhythm. And like, I think that's where, anyway, it's interesting. You guys really align with us because like, I drive an F-150. It's not fancy, right? Like I live a free life, man. Like, it's like, I have choice. I can go travel for a week or a month or whatever.
But don't compare yourself. Like you said, I think you had another post. Social media will make you feel like a failure if you're not like rich by, don't compare yourself. By the way, I have an F-350. Mitch has an F-150. So, but don't compare yourself.
Well, he's 2 inches shorter. So he had to go with a bigger truck. So
it's a little man syndrome. I don't want to also glossed over. You mentioned personal finances, like understanding your net worth and understanding that you're making more money than you're spending. That is accounting 101. Everybody should have a personal profit and loss statement. And basically your net worth is your balance sheet, right? It's your liabilities, it's your assets, and it's the equity that you have built up in life is your net worth. And I'm a big believer, and I highly recommend all of our listeners figure it out, understand what an income statement is and a balance sheet, and create one for your personal life and follow that maniacally. And that's a really good indicator and a sort of a scorecard on how you're doing. So I love that.
Totally. I will say, this is funny. We were reading, I'm sure you guys read it or heard of it, The Millionaire Next Door. It's an older book, but one of the facts that they gave me, and this is just classic for you, Mitch, the number one car that millionaires drove around was an F-150. And it was the craziest thing for me because you would think, at least with knowing nothing about, the behind the scenes of the personal finance movement or whatever, the FIRE movement, I should say, most people think, hey, they're driving Lambos, they're driving the Range Rovers, they're driving the Porsches, whatever it is. It's just so funny that it's trucks most of the time. And one sidebar here, pretty dumb, but funny. we had bought our first property, and I look over at Cory, I'm like, dude, we buying trucks now? Like, I thought it was like, because you're an investor,
awesome.
like, I'm going to need to put like wood in the back and like,
I need a truck, man. Yeah.
yeah, like you can have cement rolling and shit. Like, I just
in
thought
my F-350, except not a loser. It's all for show.
I'll tell you what, I haul my kids' bikes around in there, and I love it for that. But I love that. That's really interesting. I didn't realize that. I got to go read that book again. So,
but I think some of it is also goes back to playing your own game. I love that you guys call it a game. I view life as a game. I view real estate investing as a game. But I think it's important, like with social media, with, being able to hear other people's success on YouTube, on different podcasts. It's important that you're playing your own game. And I know we talked about this when I was on yours, just getting really clear on what's important to you. So when you are building this real estate empire, you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it to create more jobs. You're not doing it to buy a bunch of shit that doesn't even align with the vision or why you got into it in the first place. And so I love that you guys have that as kind of a North Star, that you value your time, you value your freedom. And again, there's nothing wrong with having things that if that's important to you. But I do see people, as they get into this game, they start playing someone else's game and they start playing that comparison game, and it ends up taking them farther away from what they want in the first place. And it sounds like you guys are very clear on that. And I just love that part of the story, because I think it's a piece that a lot of young investors, they miss.
Yeah. And I have a note here on this one, Gabe. I think that clarity removes desperation from your decision making. So, but the problem with that statement is that you actually can't get the clarity without having the mistakes. And so at least that's the way that we've seen it. Like Ryan and I have spent a stupid amount of money on shiny object syndrome to realize where our alignment actually is and where we actually belong. And that is just a byproduct of being young and hungry and trying new things. And I don't regret it for a minute.
You could also be old and make stupid mistakes and buy shiny objects. I think I'm older than you guys.
Yeah, you could exactly. And it's not age dependent, but I think that if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have learned early enough that, okay, real estate and coaching, like this is our lane. This is what we want to do. We want to provide our value this way. I mean, we've had Amazon stores and YouTube channels and things that like just didn't work out the way that we thought they were, because we were looking at new ways to bring in income, as opposed to building that one bridge all the way across and not 7 that led to halfway through the lake. So it's just, that's a big lesson that we've learned. And I'm thankful, Travis, that we learned it in our late 20s, early 30s, as opposed to in our 40s or 50s.
Yeah, I love that. If you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. I did have one question. You mentioned, I think it's on your social media, that like you've built sort of a framework about how to leverage a W-2 job to scale in real estate. And I like that, because a lot of our listeners have jobs, they're trying to figure out how to scale. And there is a lot, including some of it comes from us sometimes, like, quit your job, burn the bridges, do it, go invest in real estate. But I also want to,
that's me. I love saying that.
Yeah. That's
Travis is calling me out.
Yeah, don't
That's
be a bitch, buy real estate.
Yeah.
So, but I love that there's a journey for everybody, and I love that you have I want to learn more ask you more about that framework, because we have people in our tribe that are like, we kind of shamed them for a while for flipping, like, don't flip, buy long term. But then we're like, wait, flipping's like a means to an end. It's like large cash hits. Yes, it's not tax efficient. Yes, it's not true passive income. It's not true freedom, but you can make lots of money and invest it, maybe have a path. Maybe for every flip, you peel off half your profit after the government takes half, and then you go and you invest, or you put it into a freedom fund to go then buy, an apartment complex or whatever to generate passive income. Talk to us a little bit more about your framework around leveraging a W-2 job to then scale to freedom in real estate.
Real quick, I'm going to let Cory go into this one, because I know I can see he's about to talk. The one thing I want to mention is, like, as a real estate investor, you become a Swiss Army knife. Like you just mentioned, flipping and then you go in the long-term route. I don't think there's one. Well, the only thing that's going to bring you away from your lane is if you're still managing the W-2 job. For example, like you're in tech sales or something like that. You have to, for 8 hours a day, you're thinking tech sales. You shut your brain off when you get home. You have to think real estate investing, and there's no synergy, right? Like you can argue that sales is and kind of communication and all these things goes into real estate investing. But what I wanted to mention to you is, I think there's a happy medium of supplying yourself with big lump sums of income through flipping and then reinvesting those dollars into long-term units. There's strategy behind that, but I'll let kind of Cory talk about the balance of your W-2 and investing. I still have my W-2, and I use that as like my foundation just to continue to invest, because I can do it with my eyes closed. I've been doing it for 10 years. The similar things, elevating, but income keeps going up. And so we pride ourselves, and we always recommend people get into a sales job or a commission-based job where you have a base salary. And then if you're gritty and you're hungry, you can make more dough. Like, I don't think I could ever sit at work for doing the same thing every day, whether I'm having a great day or a bad day, and make $70,000, whatever it is. It's impossible. It's just not in my blood. So I don't want to take away from the spotlight, but go ahead, Cory.
Well, no, I think the timing of this podcast is interesting, because I left my W-2 job 10 days ago. So it's an interesting time for Ryan and I, because, we're leveraging him keeping his and me going full time into the real estate, and really our coaching business is what we're trying to drive forward right now. But I think Gabe mentioned something earlier about like taking action. And I think that there comes a time in everyone's lives, like where you're never going to be ready. There's no one that shows up at your door waving a flag, like, dude, it's time. Like, this is what you need to do. And I think Ryan talks about all the time, he has a young daughter. Like, I don't believe that he was ready for that to happen. It just it happens, and then you don't know what to expect, and it's the best thing ever, right? I think that's in a lot of big moments in your life. Like, I wasn't really ready to leave, but I made a decision that like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go all in on this. So leveraging the W-2 job is brilliant. You should do that. In my opinion, as long as you can do it, as long as you like, you don't have to love, but as long as you like your job, keep it, use it, build up your income, build your systems that way, use it to get loans. And then if and when your real estate or whatever thing you're doing becomes a business, or you can push it into a business rather than just an investment vehicle, then, the leap of faith is like, my thought is like, I'm going to die one day. Like, at least I'm going to tell my grandkids or my kids that I'm trying this as much as I possibly can. So it's, we're at a unique place in an inflection point. And I think I wasn't quite ready for it, but here we go. And that's the action that we're going to take. So.
What you said was so cool though. Like, you're never really ready. I mean, I wasn't ready to have kids. I wasn't ready to buy the first property, the fifth I mean, I love that, because so many people get caught up in this idea that they need to have all the knowledge, all the information, all the pieces lined up to go take down an asset, or to go leave a job, or to go. And there's a little bit of that, like, jump off the cliff and build the airplane on the way down. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So I love that.
Yeah, that's like a mantra that I've kind of lived by, and it comes from back to our conversation about confidence. The best quote I've ever heard about confidence is from Ed Milet, and he says, "You build confidence by keeping your promises to yourself and doing the things that you say you're going to do over and over, so much so that you trust yourself, so you don't have to worry about the opinions of others." And I think the same thing happens when like you make decisions about like, oh, okay, like if I'm going to go do this thing, it's like, taking the leap of faith is like, I'm betting on myself. Like I believe, and it's like, if you don't have that mentality, then it's probably going to be tough to win. And even then, failure is still a possibility, but at least we went after it. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Well, but also like, could you go back? Could you go get a job in a year from now?
My worst case scenario would be probably what I was doing 3 weeks ago, right? Like, so or in some different capacity, right? Like maybe I would get some different jobs.
Well, I remember like starting this journey with my wife, and she's like asking about risk. And I said, look, it is risky. And like, but you got to think about it. Like if we lost everything, gave everything back, everything's gone. I'm like, I guarantee we'll have the nicest apartment within a month. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because I can go back and get a W-2. I can go figure that out. I mean, aside from brain damage or something health-wise, right? That's a different scenario. We'll have the nicest apartment in town. We're always going to be okay. And we live in this country where we can actually take really big risks. Obviously you want to be calculated, mitigate risks, all those things. But we live in a country where like the bottom is not that far if you're a smart person, if you're diligent, if you're willing to do what it takes. And so I think that a lot of people discount that. They picture this like, I'm gonna be on the streets, my kids are gonna be hungry, all these things. And I'm like, that's not true.
Well, the other piece of that too is you own real estate. And I will never stop saying like, I've always been in a better position because I own real estate. And if shit hits the fan, you're in a better position because you own real estate. Every piece of real estate is another lever to pull, right? And so, when things get hard or situations change, circumstances change, those that own assets have more choices. They have more levers to pull than those that don't. If your only source of income is a job, if that's your only source of income, I would argue that's actually more risky than owning real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're like one line item on a profit and loss statement for a company, like, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit risky. Or do you have multiple income streams that come from assets that you own? Are you guys, we call it R1, and maybe this is a personal question. We could edit this out of the podcast if we have to, but we call R1 where you have enough income, true passive income, coming off of real estate that covers your living and lifestyle expenses. Are you guys have had some scale, you've had some success. Are you guys close to that now? Meaning, Ryan, like obviously having the jobs critical because you can get better lending. You can, especially if you're going to keep doing like, with like FHA stuff. But are you guys at R1 yet? Are you guys close? I know you mentioned you're 20,000 away from millionaire status. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're close. And yeah, and you mentioned the millionaire status thing. A lot of our dough is in the ground, which is interesting, right? Like we're waiting on some refis. We have some big equity plays on 15-year notes. And like once that comes in, it's great, right? You'll be there at R1 as you mentioned, right? You can just keep drawing off that. But I'd say we're close, not quite there. And I think that's one of the hardest things about becoming a real estate investor is like with the market changes, cash flow changes. And then, the projects you get into, you can't refi out of them for a certain amount of time. So it's just interesting. You're waiting on other projects to close. But I want to bring that back to like when we had Gabe on the podcast last week, he mentioned one thing, and it was, if he could go back to his 18-year-old self, like one piece of advice he'd give him is just continue buying cash flowing real estate as much as you possibly can and get in as many deals as you possibly can, because real estate's so forgiving, and you're just going to have little pockets of income pop up here and there over time, right? One thing refis here, one thing is sold here, you 1031 up to something else. And so for us, we've kind of got back to this point of we've tried a lot of different things within real estate, and I'll bring it back to your question and I'll pass it to Cory. But what I found is like we are now kind of going back to square one when it's buying those true and tried properties. Like they're great, the syndications are sexy, the Airbnbs are cool, but like the portfolio, that foundational portfolio of like $300,000 homes, let's call it, or sub 2 is going to be the foundation of your portfolio. What can you pay off as fast as possible to have that cash flow just keep coming in and cranking? And I think that's where our focus remains moving forward, just to pull, then we'll be at R1, 2, 3, whatever it is, right? Because when those properties are paid off, you just have the income flowing in.
To answer your question, Travis, like if we really scaled back our lives in a way, I think it's possible that we would be there. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone has a little bit of lifestyle creep eventually, right? It's hard to avoid it forever. We've tried as best we could. So yeah, I think we're very close. And that was part of the reason that gave me the confidence to go full time, is that I know I have the backing of the real estate if shit hits the fan. But I just, so I don't know if that totally answered your question, but we are on the cusp, I will say.
I guess it depends on what expenses you're talking about. A lot of our expenses we factor in are like money to invest too. Like what's going into the retirement accounts, what's going in the brokerage, what's going into the real estate fund. So you might be a little different than other people.
Yeah, I think the calculation's personal for anybody. Like some people, like, Gabe hit R1 at $1,500 a month. Some people, I do like hitting that number earlier in life, because then it'll sort of frees up time, and then you can create massive wealth or build a huge life, whatever that might be. So, and yeah, what are you guys like in your late 20s or 30s? Oh, darn, you're really way behind the curve. You're almost millionaires at like I think when I was your age, I don't know what I was doing. I was certainly wasn't as smart and focused and organized as you guys. So congrats for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So where are you guys going? Like, I mean, when you guys are just like masterminding together, what are you talking about? What does your portfolio look like? What does your life look like? Are you leaving your job at some point, Ryan? Like, what does it look like to get working together?
I just want to talk about our focus right now. I think that the goal is to grow as Ryan mentioned, like the foundational pieces of our portfolio. We're still going to continue to do more syndications. We have great partners that we'll generate partner deals on. we're going into a new market in terms of the actual real estate. But our biggest focus right now is our coaching program. And we coach people how to buy their first and or next rental property. And I say next is like, if they're in that 1 to 3 range and they're trying to scale, like that's what Ryan and that's how we really feel we can provide value to a lot of people. And I think the number one thing missing from what we didn't have when we were that age or that stage is community and mentors. And I think if there's somebody that's there, that's just a couple steps ahead of you, peering over your shoulder, looking into a deal and saying, hey, you've been running this deal for a while. Let's get rid of the analysis paralysis. I was there. I did that. This thing is it's a go. Connection with building a team, creating the right mindset, like the analysis, all of those things, and having a community of people that are kind of rowing the boat together. That is our focus now, is building our community mastermind, if you will, of teaching people how to buy their first and next property. And then I mentioned a little bit about our portfolio ourselves. I think is happening by osmosis as deals pop up. So that's the next iteration of us. We started this coaching program about, I don't know when this is going to air, but 2 months ago. So it's very new and it's growing quick, which is good. There's a demand for it.
Cory, what's the coaching program called?
So our coaching program we're at Wealth Juice Official on Instagram. So it's really just the Wealth Juice Rental Academy. And we might play around with some name changes, but that's what we got.
I like your Instagram pages, like the reviews, real estate, top episodes, Airbnb resources. It's cool. We could take some notes from you. Thanks, on that. Man. Like, like Mitch mentioned, I think we just got our first Instagram account like 2 years ago or something. So yeah,
we're behind the curve.
Like I spend a lot of time trying to design our website, and like, you want it to be on brand, but I really like yours is punchy. You got the colors, it's exciting. And I just think, so if you're going to talk down on yourself on the social, just know you got the website dialed, and it's something, it's amazing. So
no, I mean, these two literally were not on social. I got to witness when they both joined Instagram. And we were in a room. We were at a mastermind in Phoenix. We were with Brandon Turner and some other folks that had pretty big Instagram followings. And these two were like a couple kids trying to race for their first 100 followers. It was quite. I think Mitch won. It was quite entertaining. And
I did win.
Pretty
It was so embarrassing. Yeah. Well, but here you are, guys.
Yeah, we had fun with it.
I love your.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
I'll just say this: like, you guys have. I think I forget who we talked to about this, but I guess it's building your digital resume. Like anyone and everyone is on social media today. I don't care if you're 15 or you're 55. You're either on Facebook for the older crowd, you're on Instagram for the middle tier crowd, and then TikTok for the younger crowd. Right? Like, just throw it out there. And back in the day, it was just having a website and like funnel people to your website, get their emails, and move forward. Like, people want interaction. That social of the social media is DMing people, posting on your story. People want to see the personal part of you, and then they want to see the professional, and like finding a balance. Like, it's Cory and I managing the same page. Like, we don't know anyone else doing that. It's a little weird. We have both of our pictures up there, but we're just making it work. And I think it's an interesting piece where a lot of revenue can be generated from there. So for example, like promoting your guys' podcast, promoting the mastermind and things like that, but really talking to your future avatar of people that you want in your deals and that you want in your just like sphere of influence. So someone was telling us, it was basically like, the personal branding is going, like, in the next 10 years, if you don't have a personal brand, you're not going to be successful in certain ways. Like, just the digital age with AI and things, like old mom and pops are going to be left behind. So it's just like the fact that you started, you're in a good spot and you can organically get followers. We can give you any tips you need, but you guys already know a lot of big dogs, so I'm sure they can help you out.
Well, we got Gabe. He does pretty well on social media. And I was going to stop Mitch before he makes a joke about old mom and pops. I mean, I'm not that old, Mitch.
I wasn't. I actually wasn't. I'm nicer than you are. I was going to say we joke about it, but we don't. I don't discount the utility, because like it not only just like social and websites and a podcast like you guys and we all have, like, the different mediums to attract people to you in your life, I think, are so important. And we talked about that at the very beginning. You guys talked about that right away. You launched your podcast. I'm so impressed by that, because I think so many people are so nervous to do that. But like, I wouldn't have connected with you guys if we didn't have this podcast. And like, selfishly, I get to connect with people like you and like awesome, badass investors, men and women from across the country. And like, it's not transactional, it's relational, which is so cool. And Gabe says it all the time. The number one thing you can do in this to really like explode and be successful is build awesome, genuine relationships. And like this for me is what it's about. And so anyway, I think it's whether it's social, a podcast or book or whatever that is, you're just attracting amazing people to your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you mentioned what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. We're dropping a lot of like nuggets and words here for people to listen to, but it's hilarious. It's these phrases, but it's things that we learned early on. Is like, I looked back on our YouTube and we're not going to delete it, but our first podcast episode is a joke, dude. It's an absolute joke. It's us on Zoom, blurry. I'm in like glasses with a hoodie looking like pre-COVID. There's one where we had a mask on. I'm like, what are we doing, dude? Like, they're awful. But it's hilarious to see how far you come because just a quick 4 years later, time flies. So a lot can change. And I just say like every master started as a beginner at one point and you just have to get over yourself. Just put your message out there. The only way you're going to get there is just letting people know what you're interested in and what you want to do.
It's so true. And I felt like an imposter the whole way, to be honest with you. Everything I do, I feel like, I always tell people, I always feel like an imposter. Like, I think most of us do. Travis might not because
No, I feel like an imposter now. Like I think if you're stretching yourself, you're stretching your mindset. If you get comfortable being uncomfortable, I think that's when true growth happens. And I do agree. And I love that you guys you're coaching. I love that it's very specific. It's very niche. It's like, we are going to help you break the seal. We call that phase 1 of our R1 framework. Like, get in the game, do something, house hack, duplex, whatever. And so, and then, from there, it's like, then you can do other things like attract capital or buy bigger properties and scale and learn, that kind of stuff. But so man, like you guys get them to phase 1 and then we'll take them from phase 2. Like, we should partner. This is really cool. I love how niche your focus is. Like, our focus is not flipping, not wholesaling. It's just it's like passive income, high cash flow, and looking at everything through the lens of time. So like you guys, like we're like, so why we don't like development. We don't like Airbnbs. We don't like, unless it's managed by other people, because we're always looking at, it's like long-term hold cash flow real estate and look at everything through the lens of time. And that's what we like about 0 to 100. It's super niche. We like about, with our mastermind and what we're trying to teach our students. And I love that you guys, like, you're picking a lane and you're getting very specific. And that really is the hardest part, is to doing something. And so you guys are providing in just such a valuable service. So hats off to you for that.
Appreciate that. We kind of know how much of an impact it made on us. I mean, like, if I were to talk about my first property, putting 35,000 and turning that, into a couple years later, selling that for $100,000 profit. And then a couple years later, taking that and putting it into a property in an emerging market that now is worth 200,000 in equity. Just that one monopoly move a couple times is like, we know how impactful it was for us. So it's like, if people get started and they get their foot in the door, it really can change the world. And then you can go from 0 to 100.
That's such an important piece. I mean, you guys have mentioned it a couple times. We mention it all the time. Like, I mean, I hate to simplify it, but like, buy some fucking real estate, right? Like, there is just such an advantage to own it. And it's like that first deal. Like, I always share the story of a friend that I had that like had read all the same books. He was educated, listened to all the same podcasts, but he didn't pull the trigger. But like, once he bought that first deal, once I like talked him into buying that first deal, then he bought a second and a third and a fourth. And it was just like, he just needed to do the thing, needed to take action. And I see that with other people too. I mean, there's that obviously paralysis of analysis, right? But there's so much like unlimited just potential and no ceiling when you take that first step of just buying that first piece of real estate and realizing, oh, that wasn't that hard. I mean, you guys are, great examples of that, as well as many of our other guests. But and again, I hate to simplify it, but there is some simplicity to just buy some real estate, and preferably some cash flowing real estate.
Well, to your point, my point earlier, I was asking how much you put down on your first house. Like, you said 10% because you didn't know, but like, let's say it was 5%. Let's say you put $15,000 down on that house, right? Or whatever, or even 30, right? I think you said, like, then you sold it for $100K, and then the next property was $250K. Like, it would be really hard to save that kind of money up just by like not buying the steak or the latte and, saving money. Like, some people can do it if you're a surgeon. or other things. But real estate, I always call it the great equalizer in this country, because it's the way somebody in their 20s, like I've house hacked my first house when I was 22, and it wasn't as much money, but this was a long time ago. Like 5 years later, I made like $60,000. I was making $35,000 a year at my job. There's no way in hell I could have saved that kind of money that parlayed into bigger and better things. So real estate is, if you do it right, can be sort of the great equalizer and a fantastic piggy bank to grow your wealth quickly.
And at the end of the day, it didn't matter if it was 3.5%, 5%, 10%. I mean, it's, Ryan, you mentioned 20%, but then you pulled out a HELOC. Most people pull out HELOCs on their primary and they go buy a bunch of stupid shit that they don't need. You pulled a HELOC and went and invested it in real estate. Like, do that all day, right? Like, borrow at such percentage and reinvest it into something and arbitrage a difference. I mean, it's just making smart moves. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You bought real estate and you started to scale that real estate portfolio.
The most leverageable asset on earth. And that's why we can do it.
I think that the tide is with us as real estate investors. And unfortunately, we have a government that brings in less capital than they spend, and they print the rest. And that's a big deal. And so if you've got a W-2 and you rent, unfortunately, you are on the losing side of the coin. And it's not, I don't like it that way. But if you own assets, capital pools and assets, and it does it over and over again. We've seen it. Look at COVID. They printed a massive amount of capital. We've seen it pool in assets in a huge way, whether that's equities or real estate. Rents go up, values go up. So I think it's just, you protect yourself, you protect your family, you grow wealth as the government does their thing. I wish they'd stop, but hey, that's the way it works. So
it's never going to stop. Can't stop. Can't stop. Won't stop.
Trains on the tracks, man.
Right. We're at the top of the hour. I'll take you out here with a final question we ask all of our guests. And if you lost everything, you're on the couch you're on each other's couch. I don't know how that works, but like, you have no assets.
They lost everything. They're sitting on the couch together.
Yeah.
How's that?
Together.
They're sitting on the couch watching The Price is Right. Maybe that's not around anymore. You have no money. You have no assets.
How fucking old are you? I thought you were like a couple years older than me. Like,
you know what? It's funny. I just watched Adam Sandler. I just watched Adam Sandler with my kid. I watched Happy Gilmore. And
Price is wrong.
That's right. This shit out of each other. He's like, the price is wrong, bitch. Anyway, that's why I came up with The Price is Right, Gabe. You don't have to insult my age. I know I'm old. Anyway.
Well, and there's a new Happy Gilmore coming out since we're on the topic. So
heard that.
I
am serious, and I can't wait to watch it. Anyway, let's get back to our guests since we're ignoring them with our.
You're watching a rerun of Prices Right. You have no money, you have no real estate, you have no coaching, you have nothing. You don't even have a network. You don't have followers. You just know each other. What do you guys do? What do you do? What's the first day, the first week, the first month? Like, what are the first things you do to get back on track? You have your knowledge though. That's the one thing you have to get back on track and get rolling again.
I would think about what is the lowest barrier to entry tasks that we can be doing that will generate the highest amount of revenue. And I would probably go into some form of wholesaling or try to get knowing that we have at least a resume of what we've done, trying to go into some sort of like sales type job, whether that's door to door or something where the output is worth the input. Like maybe try to get our real estate license and try to build up capital that way. That or wholesaling, that was probably what I would do to try to build up enough capital so that we could still have the active income coming in and then rebuild into passive at some point. So that's probably what I would do. Ryan,
what about you? Would it be the same or something different?
At least we didn't lose it all. We have each other. And if we didn't lose the knowledge, first thing I'm doing is starting an Instagram account or social media account just to get our network build up back up. But I will say I'd immediately go find a mentor. And what I would do is find someone highly successful in real estate investing, go work for them for free. Because I know for a fact that they'd show me the ropes and then I'd be able to climb to their level. They have the network. It's all like I'm going to skip so many steps that I already went through. And then by providing so much value to them, my superpower is building the brand, right? I'll help you create your website. I'll help you build your sphere even better than it is. You will pay me at some point, and it's going to pay me not only in dollars, but it's going to pay me in assets and relationships. And I just know for a fact we'll get back to where we are in less than a year.
I think to add on to that too, Ryan mentioned the Instagram account. I forgot to even mention that. I would start a social media brand and I would brand it like "We lost it all, watch us build it back" or something like that. Something something that like people would be able to latch on to, knowing that that is something that people would follow along with. They'd want to see. Maybe there'd be people watching from the shadows to hope we lose, but it's like at least you have eyes on it.
It's like when they drop Cardone and some other billionaires in the middle of nowhere with like an old dirty truck, and you watch them, and you're right, like they all kind of follow similar paths. Like no one said I'm going to go get a job. Maybe they did. Like a lot of them were like, how do I create value as quickly as possible? We're at the top of the hour. I do have to read something and make sure that people listening have this, because I'm supposed to read this at the beginning of the podcast. We have a new producer of our podcast, Kevin, who's a badass. And so I have to say that I got to remind people that the 0 to 100 podcast is where we're all about one thing: scaling to cash flow real estate from 0 to 100 units so you can reach R1. That's where passive income exceeds your living and lifestyle expenses, so you can spend time doing what you want, where you want, with whoever you want to. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you'd like to commit today to reaching R1 without building yourself or buying yourself another job in the process, click the link below to join our tribe. If you're listening to the podcast and you already and you're ready to start the journey yourself, click the link at the top of the episode description to join us. So thank you for following us. Thanks for supporting us. Like us on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening to this podcast, and go check out our website. What's that new? We have that new URL that's attached to the podcast, Mitch. What is that? That's do we remember what that is?
0 to 100pod.com.
Yeah.
0 to 100pod.com. Yep.
Right. Yeah. 0 2 and then the number 100pod.com. Hey guys.
You sounded so natural reading that, Travis. You
Yeah,
sounded very
I
natural.
think you said clink the link, but that was good.
I think you said clink it. Yeah. So guys, you want to click. You want to click. You want to click the link. Don't clink the link, because I don't think that'll get you there. So
I didn't see you guys reading the damn thing. So
I'm still trying to figure out how to. Ryan and Cory, thank you guys so much for being on. I had a ton of fun on your guys' podcast. I hope you had fun on ours. I hope this is just the beginning of a relationship, and we stay connected and continue to scale however that may be.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on. This was a blast. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, guys. It was a blast.